I'm here today with Kevin Lacasse with Cirrus Aircraft. We're here for another episode of Flight Tales. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kevin, how did you get into aviation?
My father was a career pilot in the Air Force for 24 years.
Okay.
So grew up around it. My first flight was in a Chipmunk over in England. My dad was stationed in England, and it was with a POW that was in the Hanoi Hilton for 7 years. His name was Colonel Jim Young.
Okay. He took you up when you were... Wow.
Yeah, it was the kids in the neighborhood and helped them wash the airplane and stuff. And the reward was to go on an airplane. So it was the first time I did a loop and a roll and saw my mom in the backyard, and I was hooked.
Wow. He took you up and did aerobatics with you. Yep. Okay.
Yep. It was a blast.
Yeah.
So I was hook, line, and sinker from that day on.
And so what happened after this?
So just growing up, always around airplanes, but never really flying. And then in high school, I had the opportunity to go pump gas in an FBO in Pennsylvania and started flying a little bit there. And then went to college.
Working and flying?
No, not really. It was just kind of just the opportunity to fly, not logging any time at all, just learning how to fly. And my brother and I had remote control airplanes. Every dollar we went in our paper route, we had airplanes everywhere.
Wow.
And then when I went to school, I was on Navy scholarship, NROTC scholarship. And when I graduated, went to flight school down in
Where'd you
Pensacola.
Go to school at?
Maine Maritime Academy.
Okay.
So a degree in marine engineering.
Yeah. And then you went to down to Pensacola?
Yep. Went down to Pensacola a week after I graduated college and started flight school.
Okay.
Yep.
So you were in the Navy flight school.
Yep. Naval flight officer. So I went through, my primary airplane was an EA-6B Prowler, stationed up at Whidbey Island, Washington. Did cruises. My first squadron was VAQ 131, and I was on the Ranger and the Constellation on that one. And then went to Pensacola as a instructor.
Okay.
And then in 1997 and 98 was selected to the Blue Angels as the number 8.
Wow. So how long were you in the Blue Angels?
2 years.
2 years?
Yep.
And that's just traveling all around and...
Yeah, so I think that the first year was 307 days a year away from home, and I think 309 the second year.
Golly.
So it was a lot of time away from home.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was worth it.
Doing all these shows and stuff.
Yep, shows. Pretty much the events coordinator title stuff is all the airspace, media, logistics, things like that was the role.
Yeah.
And so was lucky enough to... get to fly in the winter training and stuff, do all the winter visits. It was an exciting time, but the best part was the people I met in the 2 years. Lifelong friends now that I still keep in touch with.
Well, I'm supposed to go to Ellington. They're having an air show over there with the Blue Angels, supposed to be there at the end of October, next weekend.
It is, because the end of season show here is a couple of weeks, the beginning of November in Pensacola. And the unique thing with that one is the Thunderbirds had an air show cancel. And so they asked if they could come to Pensacola. So it's going to be the end of season for the Blue Angels, and the Thunderbirds are going to be there as well. So it's going to be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that would, yeah. So you said the beginning of November is when they do the end of season?
The first week in November.
Okay. And that's at the air base there in Pensacola.
It is, the Naval Air Station.
Yeah.
Yep, Pensacola.
Yeah, I tried to go during the summer, to go to Pensacola Beach and watch them. And it's just, we got there too late and it's too crowded. And
it is packed.
Yes.
I took my boat out this year. First time I ever watched the air show from a boat. So it was hot, but it was nice.
Yeah. So they stay along the beach though.
For the beach show in the summer they do. And then the end of season is actually at the Naval Air Station.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's real cool. So when did you get out of the...
I got out of active duty in the Navy in 2003 and stayed in the reserves till 2010. Retired as commander from the Navy Reserves, but I went into the wine industry.
Okay.
When I got out of the Navy.
So were you were making wine?
I started out in Gallo-Sonoma, and I was in the maintenance and operations, and then they bought a winery in Napa Valley, Louis Martini Winery, and I took over as the general manager of that. And that's pretty much said, learn the wine business, and I did that for the next 20 years.
So you were just making sure everything was running?
It's pretty much operations, maintenance, anything to do with running a winery. So it was pretty much...
And you had no experience with this. You just
leading people. It's the engineering degree is process. Yeah. So if you figure learn a process, but most of it in the military is what you really bring to a organization is the leadership skills.
Yeah.
So it was being able to, lead a group of people and whatever the mission was. And with that one, it was making wine.
Making wine. Yeah.
Not a bad gig.
No, it's not. Well, you could go to all the wine tastings.
It is. Yeah. That was included.
Yeah, that was included.
So I retired from the wine industry this January. But before I did that, I wanted to do something totally different and hooked up with Cirrus. So I started interviewing Cirrus in October and got hired just this past April of 2024.
Okay.
They were looking for somebody. The title is a business development rep for a new region based out of Pensacola, which is where my family's from. Okay. And so I'll be taking over, hopefully, the Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and then the Panhandle of Florida this spring.
So what is your title, business development? So what's that involve?
Pretty much right now, it's a training ground to be a sales representative. Mm-hmm. So the title after this is regional sales director.
Okay.
And so I'll be working with you. You'll be in my area, and you're going to be the guy that's going to be helping me find customers for a great airplane. Yeah. Cirrus is an incredible airplane, and
right now we have Matt Quillen. And so you're going to take over part of his territory. What we had, I don't know who's north
of us?
There's
Matt Quillen. He's based out of Austin, so he has Southern Louisiana. And then Sam Huff is based out of Dallas, had Northern Louisiana. And then Jonathan Sweetman is based out of Atlanta, had Mississippi and Alabama. Charlie, he is Central Florida, and he's going to give up the Panhandle of Florida.
So we'll have. So you'll be our sales director.
Yes.
And we'll be selling some Cirrus.
I hope so. It's a great airplane.
It is a great airplane. I've been flying for about 20 years now, and I had zero time in a Cirrus until a year ago, and I've loved flying it. It's a comfortable airplane. I mean, I always make jokes about the air conditioning and stuff because that's nice. And then the parachute and everything. Come on, we got to talk about the air conditioner.
Of course. Yeah, we do, especially down in Pensacola. It's my wife's favorite option on that one is the...
Anywhere in the South, it's nice to have air conditioning.
It is. As one of the RSD said, I will not sell you an airplane in the South without air conditioning. So that's
And then the parachute and all that. So, the parachute helps make it safe. But also, Cirrus has a lot of good training courses that help, new pilots when they buy a Cirrus.
It is. I mean, that's one of the things with Cirrus, that you're just not buying an airplane. You're actually buying a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the network of maintenance, the network of training, the airplane itself, that's what you're getting when you buy into Cirrus. And as you mentioned, the training is incredible.
Yeah.
It is probably one of the best training programs for learning how to fly an airplane or drive a car or anything. It is incredible. The resources Cirrus puts into it. Mm-hmm. And then the detail that they make sure people hit as they go through the process is incredible. I mean, it was impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only, I mean, if you're already a pilot and you decide to buy a Cirrus, they have the transition courses and all that kind of stuff. So
that's if somebody did buy a used one, what is it called? Embark?
Yeah, the Embark. Yeah, they can get they get their training paid for by Cirrus if they're brand new to Cirrus. So through the Embark program.
It is. I mean, that was you brought up when you got exposed to Cirrus. For me, I was out in California and I had bought an aerobatic airplane, a Skybolt, 300 horsepower Skybolt. And then eventually an RV-8. But my hangar, the hangar next to me was a gentleman. He was a almond farmer, and nothing in his hangar except his airplane was a Cirrus.
Oh, really?
And when I interviewed from Cirrus, they talked about the exposure, and I told him the story about the first time I saw this airplane and talked to him. His wife was scared to death to fly.
Yeah.
They had a house in South Lake Tahoe. And so he would fly from where we lived in Central California to South Lake Tahoe, and that's the only airplane his wife would fly in was a Cirrus. Being safe and the options that his wife started venturing out, where they would go down to Carmel or they would go other places, which was she would never do in another airplane, and that was real exposure to me of what Cirrus offered as far as safety goes. To convince somebody like that to get in an airplane and stuff was impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard the jokes where you buy the parachute, or you buy it for the wife. The wife wants the parachute. Well,
I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, you and I both flew other airplanes other than Cirrus that, in the military we had an ejection seat, which has a parachute in it, and that was nice to know that if something happened, you had the resources, the military would go find you. But when I had my own plane, You think twice at nighttime because during the day, instructors teach you, you lose an engine, where are you going to land? A road, a highway, a field. But at nighttime, you can't see those things.
You're just aiming for the darkness pretty much.
But in a Cirrus, you start flying a Cirrus and you realize you have another out compared to other airplanes, and it's the parachute. And at nighttime, if your wife and your kids are in the back seat or whatever, and you lose an engine, what do you do if you didn't have a parachute? In a Cirrus, you have that out. It does resonate when you start flying a Cirrus. It does give you another out.
The new Vision Jets, they have the auto land system also, right?
That's incredible. They have the parachute just like the SR series of the propeller, but what they also have that allows it to do that self-land is called FADIC. It's auto throttles capability.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the propeller, Continental, who's the engine in most of them, there's Lycoming as well, but they haven't developed a FADIC system for the Cirrus or the Lycoming engine or the Continental engine in it yet. But yeah, the Vision Jet, literally it's a red button in the middle. You press it and it goes to the closest airport that you define in the software of runway length.
Yeah.
It talks to the controllers. It squawks a code, tells you what's going on. It notifies the occupants inside what's going on, and it'll land the airplane to stop.
Yeah.
Pretty
That's
impressive.
Amazing.
It is. It's incredible.
Yeah.
You shouldn't use it unless it's an emergency, right?
Yes.
It's just an emergency.
That's right.
And that's the whole thing is like when I talk about the code, there's a 4-digit code that it'll squawk emergency. So it's not something you want to rely on every time you land. That's the stick and throttles. So yeah.
That's right. Don't push it every time. Garmin offers that feature on there that comes from Garmin.
It does.
Yeah. I've read some things about it and then when did I see it? I guess I saw it in, we have a guy here that has a Vision Jet. That must have been the first time I saw it. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's a great system.
Yes, what's in it was because it's a Garmin system, but we call it Perspective Plus.
Yeah.
And so essentially it's a Garmin system. The screen's a little bit different, not touch screens like the G1000, 2000. It actually has Garmin touch controllers inside where you enter in the data, but incredibly automated. We take an airline guy flying with us in the airplane, and they're amazed at the amount of automation that a small airplane that has. It's better than what some of the airliners have in it, as far as being able to select approaches, couple approaches. If those that don't know what couple is, you type it in and it'll fly you the headings and set up. And in the propeller airplane, essentially you're just using the throttles to keep your altitude as you descend. And it's
the
incredible.
new, so the Vision Jet has that, but also the new G7 SR22s and 22Ts, and also have the Perspective Touch.
Yeah, and you mentioned the G7. So the G7, there's a G1, 2, 3. There's no G4.
Yeah.
And then there's 5, 6, then 7. G7 just got released.
Why is there no G4?
It had to do this is superstition, and I'm new to Cirrus.
Yeah.
But it is. But years ago, and some people hear Cirrus is a Chinese-owned company.
Yeah.
And that turned some people off at times, but really what they did is they invested in the company. They haven't really taken anything away. They added the resources that essentially allowed us to do the Vision Jet.
Yeah.
But with that is, I think it's a superstitious thing or whatever, the number 4, and they didn't want to do a generation 4. People out there can correct me. That's just what I've heard. Yeah. So that's just what people have told me. So,
so you're saying in the Chinese
culture I guess. And I'm not familiar. I could be off, but that's just what I've told. You've heard. So, I'm not going to
disclaimer.
Disclaimers. Put an asterisk next to that one. That's a new guy thing there. And
you're going to find out they've been messing with you this whole time.
They could have been. We'll find out nationally, I guess. But G7, this current generation, February of 24 got released. They redid the inside. So they totally gutted the inside. As far as they moved some things from feedback from customers, as far as the air conditioning going from the top right to center, so it's easier to get.
It's like your car. It looks just like your car.
The avionics, it's just like a car, and that's intentional on that. But overall, if you went and looked at it, there's an intentionality because you take this SR series, the propeller series, G7, and the Jet are identical inside as far as avionics, controls, the throttle, except the Jet has 3 of the GTC touch controllers. Yeah. So it's a smooth transition for people that build time, and the SR, the propeller, and then they want to move into the Jet. They get a type rating, but the software and avionics are the same. And, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, because if you go from the G6 to the Vision Jet, there's a little bit of a
learning
curve. Yes, I went to CX last year, and I got to meet Anthony Bettini.
Yep.
And he was he's like 6'8",
6'8",
yeah, something super tall.
He's very tall.
Yes.
I'm 6'1". I look up.
And he was talking about the new G7 and how they made it bigger, where he has to move his seat up a little bit to get to the pedal.
It is, and that was one of the things inside in that. It was part of it is the for those that fly older generation Cirrus, when you get into a G7, comparatively, the dash is about 2 to 3 inches lower.
Yeah.
They moved some of the avionics as far as the attitude reference. They changed it to the GC to allow them to move things forward, so it gave more knee room.
Yeah.
So when people hop from a G5 or G6 into the G7, that's one of the first things they notice is the sight picture is different, and I have more room. An impressive change.
Yeah, it's a nice airplane. So we have 2 of them today. We're gonna have for our event.
Yep. So yeah, Matt brought his from Austin, and I brought mine over from Pensacola.
Yeah. So hopefully we have a lot of people to show those.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
They're fun. They're a blast to show people because the capabilities. There hasn't been a person yet in all of the demos that I've shown, from both Sun and Fun to Oshkosh, just to visiting airports. I don't think there's been one person that hasn't been impressed with the avionics and the inside of the Cirrus.
Yeah, it's amazing how much farther Cirrus is from other manufacturers. I mean, with the avionics and the touch and, adding all that kind of stuff. And they add little features that make it easier to fly. And one small thing that I was kind of fascinated with was the percent power. I mean, if you get in another plane, you usually have to look that up out of the POH, and Cirrus has it right there for you. So they have those small. The other one is the fuel on board when you land, wherever your destination is, how much fuel you're going to have in reserve. So they add little features to make it easier to fly, and and it's the creature comforts, not just for the pilot as well, that they put the USB chargers in. So there's 2 up front, a 60 watt and 15, the back seaters. Yeah.
So if people are in the back seat, they have their own little outlets for the USB, so they can put their iPad up. So they put a lot of thought into not just who's flying the airplane, but who's riding in the airplane as well. People ask a lot. They say, oh, that's the airplane with the parachute, and it is. Trivia. Again, we'll put the asterisks next to it, but I'm pretty confident in this one. The parachute, if you're 600 feet AGL or above, which is the envelope of the parachute, if you're above 1,600 feet AGL and you pull the parachute, it guarantees that you're going to get a full swing before it sets the airplane down on the ground.
Yeah.
100% of the people that have pulled the parachute in that envelope have walked away from the airplane, not get extracted. They have walked away from the airplane.
Walked away.
There have been accidents where people have pulled the parachute outside of that envelope, so it didn't help them out, which is a rarity, but it's just that option of, again, we talked about flying at night. You can't see anything out there. You don't know whether it's trees or highways or water, I'm
sure you've seen the video on the training, the courses where they have the guy who did pull it at night and walked away, and they called it an incident. He said, it
is. He actually just took possession of another airplane about a month ago.
Really?
Yep, his family, they bought another airplane, and it was a big event up at Cirrus because they speak so highly of it as a family that it allowed him to be there. That if he's confident that if he didn't have that parachute, that he might not have been here today.
Not have made it. Yeah. Yeah, because I think he was flying early in the morning, so it was still dark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lost an engine.
Did Daryl walk away from his?
Yeah. Yeah, Daryl's.
Yeah.
I don't know Daryl.
We had somebody on the podcast who pulled the chute.
Yeah, yeah. Daryl is a student of ours that ended up, after he finished his instrument, bought a Cirrus. And he flies a lot to Bay of St. Louis, Stennis, because he has a camp over there that he goes on the weekends. One weekend when he was on his way over there, he got right about New Orleans and had an engine failure. And so he turned back around towards Gonzales because that's where a maintenance center is, yep. Cirrus Maintenance Center, Service Center. And was short of the runway and ended up pulling the chute and landing at there was a pond he landed in, and like half the plane landed in the pond, the other half on the bank. And he just walked away. And actually if you look it up, and I saw him standing there watching in one of the pictures for the news, he was standing there watching him pull the plane out. So
it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to sit there and say, I watched them pull my airplane out. So,
that's right.
Yeah, you don't read about that often.
No, and so we had him on the podcast, and he told us about the event and all that. And how did he say it felt when he pulled it? Was it a shock or? He said it, it nosed up and then went down, and he really didn't have any impact, he said, because it was kind of in the mud. So when he landed in the pond, it was really comfortable, no hard impact.
People ask about that all the time. If there's something they ask because they think parachute. In Cirrus itself, there are so many things. As I've gone through the training, and they're teaching me about the airplane and stuff, and the history of the airplane and the two brothers. It isn't just the parachute. The safety is built in the airplane. It is a conscious decision in everything they do. They're going to make the airplane safe. And people ask, well, what else is there?
Yeah.
And like the side stick controller, why does it have a side stick controller? And, the reason is when they decided they wanted to be safe, and it's told us by, one of the brothers, Dale. And he said that they looked at, why did people get hurt in airplane accidents? And it was, the yoke impacting their chest.
Yeah.
All right, we can change that by putting a side stick controller. And so it's things like that they looked at, like the firewall is directed at an angle that if there's an impact in the front, the nose wheel goes, it's not going to go into the pilot, it's going to go down below. So it's deflecting that energy. The seats tonight. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that. We go out tonight, I'll show you. You put your hand on the seats and make that crinkly sound.
Yeah.
There's the honeycomb aluminum in there that's intentional, like in a helicopter, that absorbs the shock when you come down on the ground and stuff. And even like the monocoque, the cockpit around you, has that carbon fiber built up. So if you're in a parachute and it swings into a tree, it's not going to impact that. Has a copper mesh around it in case for lightning protection. You have also a airbag in the seatbelt. Yep. There's airbags in the seatbelts. Mm-hmm. There's the cuffed wing. People wonder what that wing is, and it's actually the inside of the wing is a higher angle of attack than the outside wing. So it's stall indications. Yeah. So people talk about, stall the airplane. There's so many things to warn you of impending stall. Well, you have stability control too. If you bank prevent you from overbanking. So if you go over 45 degrees angle of bank, it'll bring you back. And for your commercial training, you can turn that off. Yeah. And then you can go your 6-degree angle bank turns and stuff. But so there's so many hidden things in there that are protecting the pilot from themselves. Yeah. I talked to my daughter and my wife. There's the auto level, the blue button. Yeah. And I said, if something ever happened to me, just remember blue, red, red. Yeah. Hit the blue button, red on the parachute, and the red of the mixture shuts the engine off, and enjoy the ride down. Yeah. So, and hopefully, I'm not dead. Yeah. So, I'm trying to exercise, keep it going. So, yeah. But that's an important thing. My daughter's like, I can remember that. Yeah. So, yeah. The main landing gear are made, they're a composite fiberglass, and they're made to absorb, they'll bend right up and come right back down, all in that energy absorption when setting down back in the ground. Yeah, I think there's trivia on that. People asked another question they ask a lot. Once you pull the parachute, is the airplane totaled? Yeah, no, it's not. No. There's a percentage. I think the rough numbers, again, asterisks next to this, is about 25%. He's in training. Yeah, I'm in training. Yeah, he's in training. But it depends on where it lands and what the surface is like. But they said roughly 25% of the airplanes that have pulled the parachute are able to be put back into flying condition. So I think Daryl's was totaled because it was in water. Yeah. I think you're right. I saw that airplane, and I think that's what they said. It went into water. I think he was... I want to say, was it 10 months that he didn't have an airplane? Oh, yeah, it was a while. Yeah, and he was itching because, it's so easy to hop in the plane and an hour flight, maybe not even that long over to Stennis, and he was, now he had to drive it, and I think the insurance was trying to get him a new plane. I mean, he's got one already. He bought another 22T, I think a little bit newer than the one he had, so... This flying changes your whole life. That's what he was saying. Yeah. I'm in Pensacola, and to go up to Montgomery, Alabama, it's a good 3-hour drive, rough, depends on traffic and stuff, 35 minutes. I mean, I'm there,
That's crazy.
Knoxville to Pensacola, 2 hours plus or minus 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You try doing that, it's a day trip. That's a long day trip. And, I can go up and back in a day, no problem, and do some work while I'm up there. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think how long to get to Dallas?
For me to get to Austin was under 3 hours. And that was with the headwind when I went down there. So it was an hour and a half here. Where we are today from Pensacola.
Okay.
And I think it was the same for Matt, who's just pretty much halfway for us.
That's crazy because for me to get to Houston takes longer than him to get to Austin.
It is. I went from Pensacola to New Hampshire, and I stopped once, and it was 6 hours. A little less than 5 hours and 57 minutes. So I mean that's a good full 2-day trip. And, so it is impressive. The airplane does shrink the world. I took off from Knoxville, going to Oshkosh. So it's a 3-hour flight. So I had somebody with me, and it's like, I'm going to put on the autopilot. As soon as we took off, I was 700 feet out of Knoxville, and I did not disconnect the autopilot. We had done the warbird transition, left turn, right turn to go to 3.6, uncoupled, landed on the red box. That was it in 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So I probably was on the stick for maybe 2 or 3 minutes the whole time. And it was impressive. Because you just couple up, and the jet is impressive too, because you couple up the approach, and then you come down to your 500. You come to your 500 feet, disconnect. It's all trimmed up, and you just throttle in and land. So
pretty much take a nap.
That's pretty cool.
It's an awesome airplane. I can't speak highly enough of it. So.
So have you been traveling to other? I'm guessing other training centers in Mississippi and Alabama and all that.
I have. And what I'm also doing is, like today, Matt Quillen, who's the, one of the RSDs out of Austin, he's here. Yeah. But I was over in Austin last week and, went on a demo flight with a prospective client for him, so I could just see techniques.
See what he normally does.
Yeah, but I've been spending time with Jonathan Sweetman in Atlanta and have done multiple rides and then processes with meeting very new customers and just shadowing along and listen and see. And then him introducing me is eventually I'll take over that area and they'll say, well, you'll be working with Kevin, in the near future.
Yeah.
So that's what the business development role is really exposure. There's a whole process of testing. And eventually, you go to the executive leadership and they bless you to sit there and say, okay, here's your district, or, people, it isn't guaranteed you make it through.
Yeah.
And so there is some pressure to make sure you study.
So what kind of, is it like a written test or is it?
It's a lot of it's verbal. But we meet.
Like a check ride, sounds like.
Cirrus really invest in the sales team. And that's when I say that is they dedicate, we have, sessions probably every 2 to 3 weeks for about 4 hours on a certain topic. And you have the executive vice president who's attending, at least 2 to 3 of the my bosses, they call them executive directors from the regions. They're all on this with a group of 3 of us that are going through this training. And so the topic, and you're just going through for 4 hours, and it's not like a grilling, it's we have to study.
Okay.
And then we come up with questions that maybe we weren't able to answer ourselves, or have them walk us through examples of challenges that they've seen in their future, or ones that we may, tough questions customers may ask.
So it's scenarios, kind of like scenarios. It sounds like
exactly. How to walk somebody through the sales process. Yeah. Hey, how do I get insurance? We have preferred partners through, if somebody has a airplane they currently own, and they buy a new one, we align with 2 companies, Lone Mountain and Arista, and they help walk through being able to sell their airplane as they purchase the new one. And it's learning that process. How does that work? And same thing with insurance or tax lawyers. We learn about that. So we don't become tax experts, but we know the people that helps walk through the customer. And it's for us learning all those resources that we can help people out with. One of the best resources are the flight schools, because you have a lot of people that decide they want to fly. They've done well in their careers. And now the one thing they can't get back is time. We joke about time, but all the money in the world can't get you more time.
No.
So now maybe that 6-hour drive to, somewhere they want to go. Hey, if I have an airplane, I can fly myself. Hey, I can be there in an hour and a half, or 2 hours. And so now they're making up time. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons people buy these airplanes.
Yeah. And traffic. They don't have any traffic.
I love looking down at traffic.
That's right.
There's nothing better. Well, air conditioning is cool. And then it's now
being able to look down and everybody in the traffic passing them all up.
I do that when I'm flying up to Knoxville and I'm looking down at 65 or I-10 something. And
it's always got, for us from here going to Gulf Shores or Destin during the summer, you always got traffic.
Yeah.
Seems like no matter what time you leave, you especially get to Mobile and you got to get through the tunnel,
Yeah. We have a service center in Mobile, our Fairhope, which is just east of Mobile. But a lot of the owners that actually work over in Mobile, and they talk about the tunnel.
Yeah.
And they say, you never know how long it's going to take. And they'll fly from Mobile to Fairhope.
Oh, really?
And it's like a 5-minute flight.
Yeah.
But they said in a car, it could be this amount of time or 3 times that.
Yeah.
And for them, it was a resource. So they said, I can't get time back. But they said there are so many backups on that tunnel. It's so unpredictable. They said this brings predictability to their life.
Just hop in your plane and cross the bay.
And once they realize that, it's like, hey, I can do that. And then it starts broadening out. And that's the common theme at Cirrus is people buy it with a mission in mind.
Yeah.
And they realize, just 3 weeks ago, I had to go to Louisville, Kentucky. You'd go there. But it was 2 hours and 25 minutes, 35 minutes up to Louisville. It was incredible. Beautiful weekend. Went up there, did the thing for the weekend, came back. Who would have done that on a weekend?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's hard to think you can go that far on a weekend.
And that becomes habit as people buy these airplanes. They realize hey, I can be in an airplane for 2 hours and now broaden that radius. It opens a lot of doors. I can go from Pensacola to Orlando in 2 hours. My daughter went to school down there, and that's, it's a 7-hour drive, 6.5-hour drive, guaranteed. And then that's no traffic.
And you can get there in 2 hours.
Yeah. You've been in the airplane now. And if you haven't been in a Cirrus, I would definitely call your local RSD or go to your flight school that has Cirruses because the visibility of things is incredible. The big windows, the jet, it's like flying in a fishbowl. It's huge. The visibility is incredible in this thing. And not just in front, in the back. And tonight when the Vision Jet's here, I encourage you to go sit in the back. They designed it for the passengers in the back. The seats are a little bit higher. So they actually look over kind of the shoulders of the pilot.
Oh, really?
So they can enjoy the view that what the pilot's seeing. It's not like you're hidden down below these things. They actually jacked them up a little bit so you can see the visibility and enjoy it. The visibility in a jet is incredible.
I'm going to have to do that because I did fly in a Vision Jet. One of the guys here has one, but I sat right seat, so I didn't get to see that kind of thing. I'm going to have to sit in the back.
It is pretty slick.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they have that big old screen that comes down, on the back. So after you take off, they won't do work on the ground stuff. You have to be airborne, safely airborne. And then they pop it down. The kids can, plug in their iPads and stuff and play movies up there. And, people do their Excel spreadsheets. If you're back there and somebody's flying, you need work to do, work on your PowerPoints up on that big old screen. And it's not a little screen, it's a big screen.
Yeah.
So it's like a mobile office for people.
Yeah, or a Suburban or something. Yeah.
You brought up Anthony being that tall, and that's a concern of a lot of airplanes. I'm a 6'1" guy. I'm pretty wide, and you get into, some of the trainer airplanes, and you and I get into 150. Man, we're fighting for shoulder room in here, and you and I get in the Cirrus, and we're fine.
Yeah,
and that's another enjoyable part of people. It's like, hey, this is pretty comfortable.
Yeah,
that's pretty neat. The event you're having here tonight.
Yeah.
So and now it's my turn to ask you questions. So what's the event you're putting on tonight?
So the event tonight is a Cirrus. It's called a Cirrus Showcase, and basically, y'all bring the SR22Ts, the latest models, and show them off, and then we show off our SR20 and what people will be able to train in, and they'll be able to ask y'all questions about new Cirruses and that kind of stuff if they're interested.
And they're trying to bring a jet too, right?
Yes, we're supposed to bring a Cirrus, the Vision Jet, supposed to be here.
SF-50, yep.
Yeah, SF-50.
And free food, free drink.
And free food and free drinks, yes.
That's right. You heard that? You hear that? I said free food and drink, So.
But yes, no, we'll have one tonight and plan on having more in the future.
So, and that you asked, hey, what does a BDR do? The RSDs that's something we do in our regions. We try to put events together for prospective clients and actually for owners as well. A lot of times a regional salesperson will sit there and say, hey, I'm going to put together an event, and Cirrus owners like to go places in their plane, and they'll have 10 couples show up and go out to dinner and spend a day with other Cirrus owners to talk about it, and that's what it's all about. Or we'll go to a training center, get hosted, and they'll invite the people in to see the new airplanes. And then it isn't just the airplanes; it's also the other owners. Because they talk about tricks of the trade, places they've been, things about the airplane. So
it's
this whole aviation gig is kind of cool.
It's going to be fun. Also, Cirrus has the COPA with Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association, because Daryl was talking about that, and he's I haven't gone to that either yet, but
so I've joined COPA.
Okay,
so I can see that. It's important as a sales guy is what are the customers saying. And so that's the biggest group of customers that, they air their concerns and they praises. So it's a pretty broad forum, from what I've been reading. It's about a month now, been checking it out, and actually have met somebody through COPA already. He said, "Oh, I saw you joined," and
oh, okay.
How'd you know that? And he goes, "Yeah, I saw your name." So it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. They have an event every year, and I think they had Daryl was saying they had. Supposed to have one in Scottsdale, Arizona. Don't remember the date, but that's another event that goes on every year. So
I have not been to one of those, so I'll have to check it out. So, taking baby step. I joined first, and then we'll see.
There you go.
So on your staff, so I'm going to learn a little bit about his business here.
Okay.
So you're the owner, right?
Yeah.
And then you're a CSIP.
Yep.
And a CSIP is.
Cirrus Cirrus Standardized Instructor Pilot.
And what does that mean? Are you different than a regular CFI?
Well, in Cirrus's eyes, yes. I have access to all the training materials that Cirrus has, and all the courses and all that. So the benefit of somebody coming to a CSIP is that I've done training with Cirrus, factory training, and I did tests and a check ride pretty much, and they said, "Okay, now you're a CSIP."
What's the difference? Is there something different about a Cirrus that you have to have a special?
They just want you, if you're going to teach in our plane, they want you to know everything about it. It's not just a regular different manufacturer where you just go and get checked out, one-time checkout. They want to make sure you know the plane and you're using standardized material, because they have the IFOM, which is the Flight Operations Manual, and it's on your iPad, and that's how they standardize everything. And then they make sure you understand the POH and can know how to access all that material, and make sure you've been trained on it, like the G7 stuff, the Perspective Touch. They make sure you've, like at CX, I went and did the hot bench, so they trained me on how to access everything on the G7. And
now on your staff, do you have more CSIPs, or you have?
So first you got to become a CSIP, then you can become a training center if you have a Cirrus in your fleet. So, but you have to have the latest model, which we have the G6, which was the latest model before the one that just came out. So you have to have at least one Cirrus or in your fleet, and you have to have a CSIP, and then you can be designated a flight training center. And then once you are designated a flight training center, you can have what's called training center instructors. And I train them through a course that Cirrus gives me. And once they get through the course and pass everything, then they get designated as a training center.
Now, does it help somebody going through training? Are there benefits of having been trained, like insurance-wise?
Yes, insurance likes to see people going through the transition courses and getting a certificate, because you get a certificate once you're done, and you can bring that to your insurance company. And
now, do you train just like private pilot, or do you go through commercial instruments, the whole gamut in a Cirrus?
We can do everything in the Cirrus. The only thing, like if you do CFI stuff, you have to do spins. So the CFI course, you would have to find another airplane to do spins in, because you're not allowed to in the Cirrus. But you can do all the other. You can do private, instrument, commercial, And you can even do the CFI maneuvers in there. You just can't do spins.
Yeah. So I guess that's a contentious item. Do you know about the history of spins in the Cirrus?
No, I don't really know the history.
So there's rumors out there that said, oh, the parachute they put on because the airplane couldn't get out of spins.
I have heard that. Yes.
Yeah. And that's bunk. When they over in Europe, it had to get certified in Europe.
Yeah.
So in the United States, there was a series. It was 12 spin sorties or whatever to go through this out in the desert, and they actually went out, spun the airplane. The FAA halted it at 8 and said, hey, you're good to go, because they demonstrated with the parachute guaranteed every time it got out of the spin and stuff. And so that's the first procedure in a Cirrus is get out of a spin, is pull the chute. It's not that it can't get out, because in Europe they said, no, you have to get out of the spin stuff. And they did, and it made it through the certification. And then the reality is taking the safety mindset. I'm an aerobatic guy, did aerobatics stuff and did a lot of spins. You get used to doing those. But if you take a new pilot and stuff, the stress level, the heartbeat, the sweat, the other stuff, and you say you're going to go spin and you're a CFI, people, it's not a comfortable thing if you haven't done it. Once you've done it, you understand how to do it. You think about it. If you're having a bad day, to get yourself into a spin, things are probably going pretty bad. You're not going to be laid back. Hey, here's go. We're going to spin the airplane. No, you're probably going to be maybe stressed. Bad weather. You're going to be stressed. Something's going on where you're distracted. You're not going to be on your A game to be able to get out of a spin when you weren't expecting to be there. So in Cirrus, we started off the conversation about all the different things Cirrus builds in the airplane to get you not into a spin. But if you're having a bad day, man, you have one option right here is going to get you out, and that's good to go.
Yeah.
And, so again, if you're not familiar with Cirrus stuff, that whole thing about they put a parachute on because it get it out, that's not true. Not true. So.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I tell it like it is. That's again, the asterisks in this thing. But that one,
we have a lot of asterisks in there.
On that one, I'm very confident in, from there is so much data from the test pilots up in Duluth and stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody has said the same thing, that, usually it's the naysayers that, again, it's the most popular general aviation airplane in the world.
Yeah.
It didn't get that way by being, a bad airplane.
Yeah.
It's a good airplane. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as on the training side, I've been happy with all their training material, their courses. I mean, I think they're thorough on, the videos and the flying. It's basically a syllabus, and you just, whenever you go up on a flight, download what lesson you're doing, and they tell you what to do: short field, soft field, slow
How many
flight.
TCIs do you have on your staff?
So I have, let's see, I got 3 TCIs.
And they keep busy?
Yeah, we all stay busy.
It's good.
I've been real happy with the training side of Cirrus. They put a lot into the training, and they're developing right now an instrument course. So right now they don't have one on their training syllabus. I think it was right before CX, they put out the private pilot course. So, and then at CX, they were telling us they're developing a instrument course.
Yeah, because that's the other part, is that if you go to get type rated to fly in the jet, you have to get type rated in the Vision Jet. And all that is done up in Knoxville, and they have full motion simulators. You're type rated in the simulators up in Knoxville. And then when you complete that, they ended up doing what's called SOE, where they actually get time in the jet, and they go all around the country and stuff to build actual hours in the airplane and stuff. But the type rating is actually done up in Knoxville, and it's a pretty intense course. It's thorough, so it's not like people are cutting corners. They make sure you know what you're doing, because it's a jet aircraft. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw last time I was up there, they were building the second simulator. So.
Yeah, no, they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, they are. They are. So that's a nice facility up in Knoxville, too.
I think it's 8 years. I think it's been up there.
Yeah.
When they moved from Duluth down to, I believe it's 8. So.
Well, Duluth gets cold in the winter.
It does. Yeah, I went up there this summer. It was beautiful when I went up there.
Don't go in January.
Yeah. So, yeah. So no, it's way up there.
Yeah, it's way up there.
But it is impressive when you go out there on the line, though, the number of airplanes they produce and bring down to Knoxville.
Yeah, I haven't been to Duluth. I went, to Knoxville because when we took delivery of our SR-20, I went up for for the delivery show.
What'd you think about the line as you went in there at Knoxville?
It was nice. Now that was during Oshkosh last year, so a lot of I think a lot of the planes were gone, or a lot of people were gone because everybody was at Oshkosh.
Empties out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's a nice facility, and of course last year or this year, I guess they had CX there in Knoxville, so they gave us a tour, which I'd already seen it because we did our delivery. So, but I really like their facility.
Yeah, they do, and it's a special experience when all the deliveries are done. Most all of them are done up in Knoxville.
Yeah,
and it's an experience, for the whole family or friends that attend this.
They put you in the car, and then you drive in to the hangar, and the lights are gone and music are gone, and then boom, your lights are on the plane, and it's very neat.
Yep. And a lot of it has that input of what's important to the people, because adding another member of the family is a lot of people look at it as, it's a dream. For some people, they go from zero to nothing, into a first airplane, and others they've had airplanes before, but all of them say it's quite the experience.
It is, yeah. And I don't know of any manufacturer that does stuff like that. And
it's that whole process when you put in your order. Eventually, there's a time frame before they make the airplane that you're doing your interiors, you're doing your colors, you're picking your end number. All those things are happening in this process. So when you get your airplane, it is your airplane.
Yeah. And, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
Looking forward to next year.
Yeah, next year. Now we get to go party.
Let's go look at some airplanes.
Yeah, let's go look at some airplanes.
If you made it this far, you listened to the entire episode. And for that, we would just like to say thank you, and we hope you enjoyed it.
We would also like to thank Kevin for being on the podcast and sharing his story.
If you have any questions about today's episode or suggestions for future episodes, just leave a comment or message us, and we'll do our best to answer. If you'd like to check out some fun aviation videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Owens Flight Training. Or if you'd like to get more information on becoming a safe, knowledgeable, and confident pilot, just head over to our website, owensflighttraining.com.